When it comes to NDIS registration, there's a lot of confusion out there with different websites saying different things, and so this video is going to cover what the NDIS and the NDIS Commission have to say about it, and hopefully clear up whether you need to or might want to become a registered NDIS provider. Now, whilst a lot of this information might relate to any type of provider or any size of provider, our channel focuses specifically on independent support workers or independent support providers. So any information we provide in this video is going to be more tailored towards that type of person or business, but feel free to use this if you're a larger provider considering registration. So what are we going to look at in this video? We're going to look at what is NDIS registration. We're going to look at who needs to be registered. We're going to look at the benefits of registration, the benefits of remaining unregistered, the compliancy differences between registered and unregistered, and we've also got a little quiz that you can fill out and it'll basically answer these questions for you as well. So let's get started with what is NDIS registration. So it is the process of registering with the NDIS Commission, being audited and assessed in line with certain criteria, undergoing a suitability assessment, and then ultimately being issued a certificate of registration provided you passed all of the audits and assessments. As part of this registration, you get certain benefits, but you also have certain compliancy requirements that are increased and that unregistered providers don't necessarily need to abide by. As part of the registration, you'll have to come up with certain policies and procedures that you may not already have, and you'll likely need to gather a whole bunch of documentation to support your registration. Registration can be something that costs a lot of time and money, so when you're deciding whether you may want to register, whether or not you need to, make sure you take all available information into consideration. Don't just use something like this video or a particular website as your sole basis for your decision. Now, just while we're touching on that, we've actually made a nice easy quiz that you can go and fill out. It's 7 questions, and based on your answers to those questions, it'll basically tell you, yes, you need to register because you selected this, or you may want to register because you indicated that you want to do this. So it's 7 questions. You don't need an account, you don't need to pay for it, you don't need to put an email in, nothing. You just click on the link in the description, it'll take you to that quiz, and then you can complete it, restart it, try it again, do whatever you want. Everything's for free. So that'll be at careroo.com.au/tools/register-quiz, or as I said, there's a link in the description. Feel free to use that. It'll be heaps easier. So let's look at who needs to be registered. So for independent support providers, the main 3 points that'll either make or break whether you need to be registered, not whether you should, but whether you need to, are whether you want to support NDIA or agency managed participants, whether you want to provide specialist behavior supports, or whether you need to or wish to engage in regulated restrictive practices. Now, if you don't know what specialist behavior supports or regulated restrictive practices are, there's a good chance that you're not providing them. So those are the 3 main ones for independent support providers or independent support workers, but there's 2 others which are that you need to be registered if you provide specialist disability accommodations or SDA, or if you provide plan management services. So that's whether or not you need to register. Now, we'll have a look at some of the benefits of registration, which may cause you to want to become registered voluntarily. One of the benefits of registration is that you get a wider range or wider variety of clients that you can support. As an unregistered provider, you can still provide supports to self-managed and plan-managed participants. So if they manage their plan themselves or if they have a plan manager. However, if they are through the NDIA, you will need to be registered in order to support those participants. Being registered gives you the ability to market yourself as registered. That includes using the I Heart NDIS or We Heart NDIS logos and things like that. It allows you to have a presence on the NDIS Provider Finder tool or portal. So this is a list of all the registered providers that the NDIS curates. It also gives you access to various tools and resources on the MyPlace provider portal. And along with that, there's additional resources and training provided through the NDIS that are only available to registered providers. So if any of those sound enticing to you, you may want to consider being registered. So now let's look at the benefits of being unregistered. You're going to have lower compliancy requirements. Keep in mind that you still need to remain compliant. You still have the NDIS code of conduct that you have to abide by. You still have to keep things like service agreements and shift notes in most cases. You still have to make sure that your invoices are in line with the NDIS. And you can't just go charging whatever you want. You still have to abide by the price agreements in most cases. Another point to being unregistered is the lower costs of starting but also maintaining your business. And another thing which touches on compliance is that you won't undergo regular audits or assessments. However, keep in mind that you can still be audited or investigated based on complaints from participants or other providers. So as an unregistered provider, you will still be able to provide most supports to most people in most cases. For a lot of independent support workers, there's no really compelling reason to register unless you tick one of the criteria for mandatory registration, such as working with NDIA managed participants. But let's continue on and look at the compliancy differences. So as I said before, all providers must abide by the NDIS code of conduct. However, registered providers have increased compliancy requirements. So let's look at those. Registered providers must comply with the NDIS practice standards. As a registered provider, you must also have effective systems in place to handle complaints and incidents. You also need to complete the NDIS worker screening check for yourself, any other key personnel, or if you end up with employees, they'll also need to complete that. Whereas an unregistered provider does not necessarily need to complete that check. When you're registered, if you have changes to your business details, if you come under financial stress, or if you have some inability to provide supports to participants, you'll need to notify the NDIS of all those things. As stated before, you'll need to undergo audits, and there are other requirements that can be imposed upon you during your registration process. And whilst I didn't come across it in the research for this video, I do also believe that registered providers then become mandatory reporters for certain incidents as well. So based on all of that, should you register? Well, basically I can't answer that for you. It'll come down to whether you need to register based on those mandatory criteria, or whether those benefits entice you enough to go through the time, effort and money to register as well. As I said earlier, we've got a quiz on caroo.com.au that will run you through some questions, and the outcome of that quiz will basically say yes, you need to, maybe you should, or no, it doesn't look like you need to at all. Now, one last thing before we end this video. Independent support workers are constantly being shortchanged when it comes to admin software. All the tools that we came across when we were starting our business either catered for large providers if they were NDIS specific, or they were for generic businesses. Think of things like QuickBooks, Xero, MYOB, etc. This made them overcomplicated, not fit for purpose, or generally overpriced because you're paying for a whole bunch of features that you don't need. So what our next video is going to cover is how to build an admin system without wasting a whole bunch of money, without wasting a whole bunch of time, and to get something that actually is built suitable for independent support workers. So keep an eye out for that, hit subscribe, the notification bell, all that good stuff. And if you'd like to join a group of independent support workers over on Facebook, there'll be a link for that in the description as well. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.